So I got this cartoon. It comes from Freedom Tunes. It's about, let me see, how long is it? It's almost 3 minutes. So we're going to watch this. Now, what this does is it's engaging in conversation. It's basically it's making an analogy. It's using a cartoon to make an analogy with illegal immigration. And the analogy is, what if somebody were to break in your house? So if somebody crosses the border illegally, then they start off making the analogy that it's basically, we can look at it as if somebody broke into your home. And then they go from there with this analogy. So we're going to watch this, and then we're going to tear this apart because it's got problems, folks. Now, mind you, I just talked about citing sources. Everything that I'm using, you can find in the show notes. Okay? So if anybody comes at me and they're like, dude, you use my... No. I did the honest thing. I said, hey, this is where you can find this. So go check them out. And maybe you like it. Maybe you disagree with me, whatever. But here we go.
Hey! Help! Help! Help!
What are you doing to this poor man?
This poor man? He broke in!
But what else did he do?
What else?
Yeah, you can't just kick him out if he's peaceful. What law did he break?
Are you seeing where they're going here? They're like, oh, this person broke in, but what else did they do? It's kind of like, okay, somebody crossed the border. Okay, fine. But did they do something else? This is kind of a point of, okay, the people that are saying, did they commit any violent crimes? Did they steal anything? Which would be my argument. Okay, so this cartoon attempts poorly to attack the argument that I give. Let's continue watching. I'm not going to interrupt too much.
That one!
Gene, we didn't give him a reasonable pathway for entry. What was he supposed to do?
I risked everything to come here because I love this family.
Aww.
Statistically, the people born here have committed more crimes in this house than undocumented residents. Like him. Zach smokes weed sometimes.
So stop pretending this is about the law when it's about hatred.
What on earth?
Yeah, that's right, Dad. Your golden boy smokes weed sometimes. It's the only way to relieve the pressure of being the son you wanted, while I watch you deny my brother every day. I love you guys. You've got to make a decision, Dad. Accept all of your children, or none of us.
Shame on you, Gene. This is our son.
I'm not your dad! You just broke in!
My old house was dangerous. I had no choice but to come here. What kind of dad would throw me out like this?
Yeah, we aren't the home's original owners either.
Yeah, your other children are the descendants of people who moved here like me. And there was a time when you didn't live here either.
Okay, so now we've kind of moved into saying, okay, well, once upon a time, you were an immigrant, right? Like everybody is an immigrant here, and so it's okay, right? So they're attacking the wholly, completely open borders, for which some of the arguments would be arguments that I make is what they're attacking. But again, they do it poorly. We'll talk about it here in just a moment.
And you want to tell the people moving in now that we're not human?
Breaking in is not moving in! We're not debating this!
Wow, I never thought I would see the day where my home became a dictatorship. Living here is really taking a toll on me.
What's going on? What are you doing? Stop this! Who are you people? What is this, more of you? You all need to leave, now!
Can't you see? You're tearing our family apart, Dad.
This isn't your home! Stop! Go!
We're just one family, Dad.
Get out!
Open your heart, Father.
Okay, this place is getting kind of full.
Hello? We're seeking a better life?
After how you treated your poor undocumented family members? I don't think so.
Okay. Wow. Hey, it was a good cartoon, actually. I kind of like the style of it, and I think they put it together pretty well. So I'm going to give them credit on that. But they make a number of errors. So this is a comparison between the national border and a private home. It's a false analogy. Now, here's the funny thing about analogies. People are terrible about analogy. Like, I'll make an analogy and people will find some like tiny little element and they'll be like, well, you've got that wrong, so therefore this whole analogy is bad. That's not how analogies work. Analogies work in, they don't have to be one-to-one. If it's one-to-one, then it's no longer an analogy. So there is flexibility in an analogy for having small, minor elements being incorrect as long as the broader point is accurate. Unfortunately, this is incorrect. This is a false analogy because it assumes that a national border and a private home are equivalent in function and in legal status. But however, a home is private property with very clear ownership and personal boundaries. A country's border involves public policy, international law, for whatever you might consider that, and economic, social, and humanitarian considerations. The analogy ignores all of those in scale and in context, right? But the biggest point is that a nation is not under clear ownership with personal boundaries. My home is clear; it has clear ownership. I own it, and my wife and I both own it. And there are very explicit boundaries that say this property, this home, this property belongs explicitly to DL. Okay? There is no United States belongs explicitly to DL or DL and all the 300 other some million Americans. That's not how it works. The boundary is simply to say this is the United States, under which the government of the United States has authority over. That's what it's saying. There's no ownership here. Okay? More to the point, it's oversimplifying things. Illegal immigration involves a range of motivations, right? Economic hardship, persecution, family reunification, so on and so forth, right? Breaking into a home, it implies personal malice or theft. Somebody's not, like if somebody comes to the United States illegally, they could come here because they're fleeing a bad condition, okay? Whereas if somebody breaks into my home, the likelihood is that they're trying to steal something or theft, right? That's what it doesn't account for, this comparison doesn't account for the reasons behind the unauthorized border crossings. So it's a complete oversimplification. And furthermore, it's actually a moral equivalence fallacy because it equates the moral weight of two different acts. So on one hand, you're entering a country without permission, okay? You might be doing so as a matter of survival or opportunity seeking. While a home invasion, it violates personal safety and privacy, right? So there's two entirely different implications here. Somebody may be coming to the United States and saying, well, I'm being persecuted in this country, and if I don't leave and find somewhere else, I may not live to see tomorrow, or I may starve to death because we've got such a bad circumstance. Or they might just simply say, you know what? Things are crap here. I want to make a better life. And so they might come over and say, I'm here to have a new life in this new country and contribute to this country just like everybody else. Whereas nobody's breaking in my home and I go down at 2 a.m. to confront a robber, if I were to do that. There are considerations for whether or not you should do that. Generally speaking, you should not. But, if I were to go down and say, hey, what is your business in here? They're not going to say, well, my home is so dangerous, I thought I would come into your home and seek safety. That's not what happens. There's two moral issues on what's happening. They're breaking in to take something or to harm somebody explicitly. That is important. Okay. Now, I will address one more thing. It is possible that some people are violating or not getting permission in order to come over here and do evil. So it is possible that some people are coming across the border and they in fact do mean harm, or they do mean ill will in some way, or they will. Maybe they come over here and their intent initially is not poor. They don't have bad intentions. But when they get here, maybe they find out that life isn't so easy, and so they fall into doing bad things. Okay? However, the majority of immigrants are not doing that. And how can I say that? Do I got like a handy chart that proves what the intent is? No, but we can use a little bit of reasoning. And that reasoning goes like this. If there, and this is great reasoning, because the more illegal immigrants that people claim, the better the reasoning here works. If you believe there are 10 million people here that are illegal, that are here illegally, how many of those are actually committing violent crimes or property crimes? How many? It's not most of them, because if it were most of them, that would be 10 million people committing violent crimes. We couldn't miss it. We'd practically be stepping over a crime. If, as some people suggest, it's upwards around 30 million, that makes it even worse. That means I could barely leave my house without running into somebody that's committing a violent crime or a property crime. Right? So the more illegal immigrants that people believe are here, the more that reasoning actually works. Now, the last issue as to why this doesn't work is it ignores legal nuance. Immigration laws are not absolute. Let me rephrase that. They're not absolute like property laws. Borders are governed somewhat by international treaties. They're governed by asylum protocols and other considerations. For example, in our own country, if you come here illegally, the law, because a lot of people like to go, well, the law is the law. Okay, fine. Let's talk about the law, dummy. The law says if you come here illegally, that there is a provision for which you can seek asylum. You literally have 1 year once you get into this country to apply for asylum. After you apply for asylum, it is possible through the legal process to end up becoming a legal resident. It is not the case that just because you come here illegally, that our law says you have to be tossed out. That's not how our law works. Our law has provisions for people to get in here and then do things the right way. Many people have come here illegally and then ended up long-term, I mean, it takes a while, becoming an American citizen or becoming a legal resident. That does happen because that is how our law actually works. However, unlike immigration law, private property law, home invasions, do have no such provisions. There is no equivalent legal protection of any sort. Okay? Well, let me take that back. There kind of is. If you break in the home and you are fleeing, like you break in and maybe, let's just say, for example, you've got the way the home is situated is you got, a couple bedrooms on one side of the house and you got one bedroom on the other side of the house. And so then let's say that every bedroom has somebody that sleeps in it. And so somebody in one of the bedrooms hears, some noise. They go out to investigate. They grab their gun and, because they've got another family member on the other side of the house, right? Generally, you would not necessarily go looking. I mean, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty details on that. But effectively, normally what you would do is you would probably call the police. You might investigate. And if you do investigate, perhaps you got a family member that you need to protect or whatever. If somebody is in your house and they're fleeing, they're trying to get out, in many or most, maybe even all states, you are not permitted to shoot them. Period. There is a provision that says if they're fleeing, right? Or like some officers, you've probably heard this before, some officers will casually tell you, it's not like legal advice, they'll just say, like, look, if you shoot somebody and that's crawling through your window, make sure you drag them inside of the house so that when we get there, it doesn't look like they were fleeing, because we have to report that they were fleeing. And if you shoot somebody that is fleeing, you could go to jail. So there are some provisions, but they're very, very limited. And there is no provision where somebody could break into your house and they have some amount of time to claim asylum, and the law would say, okay, let's work through this system, and perhaps we will grant you legal status to be in this house. There is no such thing. So let's walk through that really again. Number one, it's a false analogy, right? Because you are basically, for all the reasons that I pointed out, it's a false analogy because there are legal differences, very clear legal differences, and there are moral equivalency differences, and it's a bit of an oversimplification on the motives of why somebody might be engaging in this particular action. That makes it a false analogy. The whole entire analogy falls apart if you take even 5 minutes to think about it. And you should. You should take 5 minutes to think about it.